Hello, everybody. Thank you for you've made a great decision to come by. We are live from all over the world, and I'm excited to have the opportunity to bring you some amazing content. My name is Jim Richmond, Smartling's Chief Executive Officer, and I am joined here today by two of our wonderful customers, Rosella Berry from AllTrails and Veronica Seltron from TaskRabbit. We only have 30 minutes. I want to dive right in because we have so much amazing material about how to drive quality out of your program, but driving quality into your program. So before we start, let's go in alphabetical order. Rosella, would you mind introducing yourself and the size and program, and then we'll go to Veronica.
Absolutely. Hi, everyone. My name is Rosella Berry. I am the Localization Strategy Manager at AllTrails. I've been with AllTrails for about 1.5 years. Previously worked in localization for both big and small companies, primarily big companies, for a little over a decade. And at AllTrails, I manage a team of 4 in-house contractors for Tier 1 languages, as well as work with vendors for both machine translation and our Tier 2 languages.
Fantastic. Thank you. Welcome. And how about you, Veronica?
Hello, I'm Veronica, and I lead globalization at Taskrabbit. Been here for about 7 years. I joined for the time of all the international expansions, and that's how the team took shape. And basically, the team is very small but mighty. We have 2 senior localization managers, 5 contractors. We work with 2 LSPs, and everything you see, if it's not in American English, it's our work. Web, app, comms, absolutely everything. We touch on it.
Fantastic. Again, thank you both for volunteering your time to be here and to help all of our customers get better. That's what I'm here to do. Before we talk about the great work that you all have done to sort of systematize and improve quality upstream from the localization program, I want to talk about the problem statement and the shape of the challenge that you wanted to address. So, Rosella, let's go back to you, and maybe you can comment on what were the biggest sources of rework or the challenges that you identified where you were like, hey, we need to do something about this.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the localization department at AllTrails was fastly growing along with the company. And so there were a few foundational steps that had not been yet put into place. And so I came in partly because the company wanted somebody with a little bit more experience with things such as partnering with engineering to build a foundational internationalization infrastructure. So that's something we lack that I set off right away to build along with my partners in other departments. So, for example, growing our awareness and mutual partnerships on things such as pluralized strings or formatting measurements. We are, of course, a hiking, running, and mountain biking app. So we want to make sure that our global users receive the same level of attention and care when they look for possible obstacles or looking at the trail in its entirety from the get-go. So we needed to make sure that those things were buttoned up really well. So that's what I set off to do immediately with my friends in the other teams.
I love it. Okay, thank you. And Veronica, same question to you.
I think, for a very long time with the globalization team, we felt that we were always very busy, but not necessarily with localization, transcreation, copywriting. We felt a bit swamped with admin. And the main issue with that was that at the end of the month, all our metrics were talking about words and jobs. And it was a very invisible task to be, catching errors in the source or asking for context or all of that back and forth that the team had to engage with. And that was invisible work. Not we didn't see that at the end of the month at all, but we had the feeling that we were always doing that kind of policy, that kind of admin. So yeah, that was a problem statement kind of thing. How do we, shed a light on this invisible work?
I love that. And so you've identified that there's this challenge, that there's all this invisible work that we're doing that's not really accretive to value, or at least to the outcomes that we're being held accountable for. You wanted to build a case internally that this was a problem worth solving. How did you go about doing that? Where did you start?
Well, Because we were always talking about the jobs that were in the queue on Smartling, and we were like, oh, we haven't been able to authorize this, and just like having like a lot of back and forth. We started talking about a new metric that we just made it up. It was like first attempt authorization. Basically, it just measures out of 100 jobs, how many can be worked on from the get-go. I'm not happy to say that our first time measuring this, it was really low. And it still remains quite low. It's about 30%, which means like on the vast majority of the jobs, we really need to go back to the requester of this half-cooked job and be like, oh, what is this going to do with the user? Like, what does it appear? What's the visual context? So when we started measuring this, we thought we actually need to make a statement and stop being the fixers in a way. So all of that admin work was on our side. So measuring this metric kind of like it gave us the words and the numbers to say, you take care of the fixing. We can authorize this. Can you fix this and this and this and then resubmit? So that was a big help for the team because we could, just like explain the problem. I don't want to say it's all rosy now. Like the rate is still very low, but at least we have the numbers and the teams are aware.
Well, and that metric is something that anyone can relate to, even if they're not a localization expert, right? Everybody has been handed a task that wasn't quite ready to be to start work on, and so that's super relatable, and I think it's a great way to engage with your peers. You heard it here first. The cell-drawn metric is the FAA. How about you, Rosella? Similar story?
Very similar story to Veronica's. I think this is a very common pain point for localization teams worldwide. I think in my case, two things that worked in my favor as I was setting up the program, where first of all, my experience having worked in other teams, in other localization teams, and having worked with stakeholders org-wide that truly believe that localization is something you can get at the click of a button and you get seamless service that way. And so education was something that was the key to me, starting to talk to everyone right away, illustrating what the pain points would be. And also just the awareness that if you don't do that, it is very risky for the perception of the localization team as to it can be seen as a blocker. It can be seen as the place where things get slowed down. Well, they do get slowed down because we are the last gatekeepers of quality before, or some of the last teams who gatekeep that quality before it goes live and it reaches our customers. So we want to make sure that that step is really is a really careful one where we all participate, and it's not just on the localization team to make those checks, to take those extra steps. So that was one thing, experience. The second was really, I'm lucky to work for a company where everybody takes ownership of the product that we build and is really engaged in like trying to improve and grow. And so it was fairly easy for me to immediately set up conversations with both leadership and key stakeholders to really show this is what we're experiencing. This is where the rework is causing loss of time on both upstream for the people who send us the jobs and for us to have to fix things at the last stage of the production funnel.
I think that's a very common element that I hear across so many of our customers is, first of all, you have to be very patient, and you have to be willing to educate the people around you about the complexity that exists, that is sort of endemic to what it is that we're trying to do. And that, in fact, I would argue that a lot of that complexity is not a bug, that it's a feature, right? It's what allows us to be relevant and to land our message with so many different people from different cultures.
Absolutely.
So we've established there's a challenge. We've talked to some of our internal stakeholders upstream and downstream about what that challenge is and why it's something that's worth fixing. Let's shift our attention to let's get our tool belt out. How do we go ahead and address it? Veronica, back to you. Talk to us about the standards that you put in place. Where did you draw the line and say, I'm rejecting this job. This job is ready to go. I'm going to work on it.
So, well, first of all, a bit similar to Rosella, like, people taking ownership. At Taskrabbit, values are quite important, and that's where we leveraged, because we related all of this work with the own the challenge and win together with our values. And basically we were not saying to people, no, I'm just saying, I'm not going to do this. We're saying, okay, this is wrong. Can you fix this? Can you give us context for that? And that was the standard, kind of like things like a job naming convention on Smartling, context, a final source, not a half-cooked job, as I said earlier, because some people think that they can save some time by giving you a source that might just have some changes later on. But let's start translation. Actually, that doesn't save any time, let alone any money. So we were only accepting final copy that was like, free of typos, on brand, very clear. And yeah, the other bits that I mentioned, like context, etc. So when those very simple like requirements were not there or are not there, we just reject the job and we say, can you fix it? And we always kind of like go back to the standards that we have and the requirements that we have, and take every opportunity as a way to go back to the pin message on Slack or the training materials that we shared. We just share again and again the same assets. And I think in general, people started understanding a bit more that this pull request, again, like Rosella was saying, it affects everything upstream, but also downstream. A pull request is going to affect everything, and it might even result in a complete rework of the asset you're trying to build. So in the long run, it meant a lot of time and cost, and that's just money. And it's not just a localization problem, it's a business problem. So everyone, that friction turned into accountability in a way, because everyone thought, okay, this efficiency gap is for everyone to solve.
I love that. How about for you, Rosella? A similar experience of, we're going to set the bar here?
Yes, absolutely. And like I said, the fact that we work for a small but mighty team where everybody's willing to listen to everyone's challenges, and that I represented the voice of the international users, made everyone kind of like keen on learning, like, okay, what can you bring from your experience that can make us more agile and can avoid all of this rework? Mm-hmm. So a couple of changes and tweaks that we made, like some of them obviously, as I mentioned at the beginning, foundational, like really devote some time to, like, as we continue to produce work at a fast rate, of course, we're a tech company, we're going fast, but at the same time, run some initiatives upstream with product and engineering to make sure that not only the process is buttoned down, but we have things in place, like great localized strings, like great internationalization practices, where when we receive a string that's plural, we want to make sure that's done right for all the languages we support. Same thing with formatting, same thing with things like such as gendered strings. I think it was very, very helpful for me to just continue to educate in even in infinitesimal way, and spend time on Slack explaining, hey, if I don't see this string translated or formatting in this way, users are only going to hear the masculine form of address, and all the women hikers that in other countries are not going to identify with the voice that's speaking to them. They're going to be feeling left out, and so that really resonated. But I think for us, other things in terms of process that really changed the way we were perceived org-wide was, for example, introducing more QA processes with our partners in marketing. So we QA, especially for priority markets and languages, all our Figma files. So the work doesn't only happen within Smartling, but also is transferred to the Figma files. And so they see what kind of added value localization can provide beyond the translation stage. And really all the added cultural support we can provide beyond just providing an accurate translation. I will say, though, the biggest shift for us has been introducing a Slack workflow within our localization channel. So everything is handled at a quick pace, AllTrails through a help localization channel. Before we would just requesters would post their asks with a variety of data or information or context, sometimes no context, sometimes a lot of context, depending on how experienced they were or how much they knew about what actually they were asking a localization team. And so we decided to standardize this process by offering a form on the channel itself that they can fill out. And the form provides for them kind of hints of everything we need from them. And then everything else can be discussed in a thread. And the thread is managed in an automated way through emojis. So when I apply an emoji on a job, for example, with like two eyes looking at the form that they submitted, the requester knows, okay, this is being reviewed, or Sal is taking a look at it, or somebody in the team is. Well, now it's been approved and it's moving along. And everybody who's involved, from me to the translators to the requesters, other people involved in the project, can take a look at what's happening. Do you mind if I share a slide just to let you know how how we've organized it?
Please, let's see it. I don't understand how we got along without emojis. Hard to imagine that was the first 2/3 of my life. So yes, if you can share it, we'd love to see it.
Yeah, so just to show you very quickly, this is the type of intake form that we have posted on our channel. So the requester goes in, can be somebody from marketing, can be somebody from legal, engineering, product, and then they can select what kind of help they need. And this can vary from translations to QA processes to help with the processing. For example, something is broken in the GitHub Smartling integration process, then we're there to work with them to fix it. Then if we ask for what is the request name, some context about it, what kind of priority, if something is required fast, why is that required fast? And like, what does fast mean in those terms? Different teams have different needs or standards. And then links. And they are asked to also provide information like, do you have a Figma files in addition to screenshots, or do you have a GitHub PR that I can take a look to understand better, so that when I launch the job in Smartling, I can provide both my internal team and my vendors with the best information they can have to translate and provide the best service possible. As well as constraints or any other information they can provide here. That's how we handle it. And then next step, you can see here examples of like how this is applied in practice. And so here's just a couple of examples of a submission that was sent to me. People were providing details about, for example, character limits in a job and where would they apply. And then you can see a few emojis showing you I was reviewing the project. Now the project was approved. And so that's a sign for translators to start working on it. Oh, but one of them found an issue. Then they flagged it and that blocks everything. So I know it tags me. I know I need to get in there. And then I can let them know, okay, this has been clarified in Smartling. You can go back and continue doing your work. So this is just an example of how we've been handling and making things faster and more accurate on our part.
Amazing. Amazing. Thank you for sharing that. I know the audience eats up specific examples, and for you to bring screenshots is so helpful. Thank you. Before we move on, I want to talk about automation just quickly. And Veronica, let's go back to you. Tell me about the state of automation. Where does it fit in? Where are its limits? How are you using it to be efficient without impacting quality in a negative way?
Well, we do use like a few connectors. We have a connector for Zendesk, GitHub, we have the Figma plugin. And of course, in theory, everything makes, things seamless even. I'm really sorry, I need to go back to the vetting of the jobs, because basically, if it's so seamless, it's a bit dangerous, because if you're not doing proper vetting, you're just generating rubbish really quickly, basically. And I think, when the vetting process is very strict and you have that, in a very like standardized way, then the automations become super powerful. But that's why the authorization rate became like such a key factor in how we were working with other teams. We wanted to prevent, like, for example, we don't have automated authorization for GitHub jobs. Like, we always look at the tickets and we authorized or not. So yeah, of course it helps. It saves, millions of hours of like manual, file management. But we're always very, very careful about what gets worked on. just to make the automation itself more powerful, for sure. We're also, I'm trying not to talk about AI. I'm focusing on the efficiency, but of course, workflows that help with the translation step also do help a lot.
No, I think that lands because you have to strike a balance between being fully automated and having a lot of whoopsies go through, and being an obstacle to throughput. Like it's not an easy balance to strike. Rosella, anything to add on AllTrails automation?
Yeah, absolutely. I think for us, one important aspect of the localization workflow has been working with smart matches, which are something all the teams we work with adore, because they think, oh, I can just post a job and get it back instantly because everything will smart match. And they are a wonderful, useful, and time and cost saving tool. However, we found by working in practice with the requests we receive from different teams is that smart matches are not always 100% accurate in the context that we are considering. And I'll give you a couple of examples. When we were launching a new feature that would allow our users to see in advance what the trail conditions, the terrain conditions would be on a trail that they were planning, there would be several tags related to the state of the ground, and one of them was slushy. And that when we launched and instantly smart matched with something that was existing from a previous job in our translation memory, it was smart match as a slushy, so like a frozen treat, which would be nice to find on a remote trail, but wildly inaccurate, obviously. Or the button for the description for clear skies within the same feature with smart match as clear as in clear the field of the form that I'm filling. So we educated our stakeholders. Yes, this is all very nice. We love smart matches too, but we would love to be able to at least review for our tier 1 languages. And what happens is that when we introduce that little step of human control, then I personally or my team can flag, hey, this automation actually didn't work perfectly, so let's make sure the rest of the team reviews carefully. And then we send back to the translators to provide a better human translation. So just examples of how, we work with automation, we love automation, but we also put our guardrails in place.
The slushy dichotomy had never even occurred to me, so I'm glad you were there to solve it. With just a few minutes left on the clock, I want to turn our attention to we identified the problem, we built our stakeholders, we made adjustments to our workflow and set the standard higher on quality. Let's talk about what do we get? What are the business outcomes that we actually deliver? Veronica, you changed the ratio of rework because you made the bar higher for what quality looks like on a job before you accept it. What did that allow you to do? You took all that admin out. What are you doing with the time you got back?
I think maybe something worth mentioning is that, ironically, saying no so many times and explaining the why meant a lot of people were more active partnering with us before the jobs were submitted, because they were understanding the issue and they were like, oh, okay, let's make sure this is okay for the globalization team before they say no to the request. So that is the first win we've seen for the business, that a lot more teams, maybe after product concept review or, like earlier in the process of building our product, people involve us and are like, what do you think? Is this translatable? Would this travel well? And we have our eyes on the source before we get any job on Smartling. That has been a massive win. So we're not only aware of the context, we are there a few steps before. And for, as you put it, like what do we get? I think in general, because of AI flows and the stricter vetting and like a number of reasons, we're moving towards a place where, I hope there are no legal translators in the audience, but no one enjoys translating our privacy policy, for example. That's not fun. So we have the tools to do things like that in a safe way, cheaper way, and then we move the resources to the fun bits. Like, if fun is a stretch, like the bits that add more value, and we actually do enjoy doing as a team. Like, run an audit of your product, of like areas of your product that never really get looked at twice after launch. Find the high visibility spots, and maybe you don't need translation there. Maybe you can do transcription, maybe you can do copywriting. I think the key is adding the bits that add value, which is how you add a local flavor in a way. So you minimize, American English into whatever is the target, and it's just a copy of the American product in our case. We're an American brand. So I think that's the biggest win. Find better solutions, become more efficient, use the tooling well, and then you can move resources from business as usual to high value tasks.
As a professional manager, that just warms my heart, right? This idea of applying everyone to their highest and best task and getting the most value is like, that's what it's all about. How about you, Rosella? You had a lot of time back too. How are you spending that?
I think for me, the joy comes both ways. I think that downstream is seeing how our stakeholders, our requesters are getting educated, and I'm very grateful actually of the time that's saved by guiding them through a process. We sometimes get new engineers that are new to the localization world. They don't understand. It blows their mind to know, okay, these are the things we need. So that's bringing like a virtuous cycle of mutual education. And I think for me, the biggest unlock has been that especially by showing the degree of rework that's required of all teams when we don't think in advance of like the localization or just general linguistic effects of what we build, has brought me to work more upstream with different teams. So for example, now we review product specs and product Figma files at the design level so that we can bring in our expertise and say, this is going to work, this is not going to work. Here's how we would like you to consider the specs being designed for particular countries where this won't resonate. Or we work with the engineers to let them know in advance, hey, when you're planning to build this section of the feature, there's going to be a number of strings that call out plurals, and this is how it's going to work for a lot of our Romance languages, for example. And so again, it brings to a lot more collaboration that cuts off more rework towards the later stages.
I love it. I love it. We have just about 2 minutes left. Before we run out of time, I want to thank you both again for your time and your thoughts and your expertise. There have been a million great questions in the chat. I've been watching them go by. Thank you all for engaging. I promise we'll get back to you and answer them. I want to give each of you, Rosella and Veronica, the last word, and maybe you could each give me some comments on what's one thing you would share with a localization manager who is buried in reactive work and trying to figure out where to start. Like, you're both experts. You've been in this. You figured it out. Where would you start, Veronica?
When we moved from localization to globalization, my manager at the time recommended Start With Why by Simon Sinek. And that book really helped me because that's where we built the charter of the team. And exactly what the book is about is like, why are you doing what you're doing? So for us, it was very important to just put into words why Taskrabbit needs a localization team. Why are we there for? Why are we needed to build the business? And that was the foundation of all the work we did. So I would start there.
First, so you're not reacting, you're proacting. I love that. Thank you, Veronica. And same question to you, Rosella.
I think for me, the number one advice would be to cultivate your relationships org-wide. Localization has the privilege of really working with everyone in the company, so make that count and show how the knowledge you acquire by getting everybody's perspective enriches the company in turn. And so just spend time on those relationships. They will understand you more, and the program as a result will get more visibility and success.
This has been such a great session. I learned a lot. I hope the audience did too. To you, Veronica and Rosella, thank you sincerely for the opportunity to play a small part in the journey that you're on to help people understand one another better. Thank you all for coming by and listening today.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.